Let's get more on this now with Dean Cheng, Senior Research Fellow at the Asian Studies Center of the Heritage Foundation. He joins us from Washington. Dean, great to see you there. First of all, what's your take on the billionaire space race? Because some headlines are calling it a tragically wasteful ego contest, a PR stunt, an ego trip. Does this all really further the development of humankind, or is this ultimately about making these masters of the universe even richer?
Well, when you consider that we are having this conversation thanks to communication satellites, I think this derision towards space, which has been there since the beginning of the space age, is a reflection of, frankly, know-nothingism. Space is an integral part of our economies. It is how we communicate with each other. It's how we do financial transactions in Asia, coordinated with Europe, coordinated with the United States. It is how people get, hospitals are informed about incoming patients. Human spaceflight is part of that. Human spaceflight also talks to the need to explore. It is what got us out of the caves when we were cavemen and cavewomen. And it is what got us across the Atlantic. It is what led to the Silk Road and exploration in general. And I think that the people who are so short-sighted about this probably forget how much they today are living lives based upon exploration by forefathers and foremothers.
Right, let's talk about the US-China rivalry, because China, Dean, is a relative newcomer, now seen as a serious contender. Should this be a government-led endeavor, or like in the US, should it be led by the private sector, who often have the edge on innovation and deep pockets and access to capital?
I think that that's a false choice. There are aspects of space that are best done by government. Space exploration, for example, going to other planets simply to put down satellites and find out what is the composition of the Martian atmosphere, or what does Pluto look like. But in terms of commercialization, in terms of developing the technologies to take people to space, to expand satellite-based broadband, to improve weather forecasting, that is probably best left to the private sector and the profit motive. The Chinese themselves are pushing private commercial companies that really do have to look at the bottom line, X-Space, iSpace, companies like that, precisely because they recognize that the giant Chinese space industrial conglomerates, which are state-owned enterprises, are simply not going to be innovative enough to compete with the likes of Richard Branson, Jeff Bezos, and Elon Musk.
So despite having just put a rover on Mars not so long ago, do you think that, I mean, if you had to put a number on it, Dean, how many years is China behind the U.S. in terms of the space race, in terms of space technology, let's say?
Well, it depends. For a number of years, for example, the United States could not put its own astronaut into space while the Chinese were doing so. So in some ways, the Chinese are roughly equal. The Chinese were the first to put up a quantum communication satellite. That actually arguably puts them ahead of the United States. But in terms of years of experience of putting people into space, China is far behind. They now have they now have a crew on their space station. It's an interesting question, given a country that tends to put one human spaceflight mission every 2 to 3 years into space. Are they going to keep that space station manned year-round all the time? When it comes to outer planet exploration, it's noteworthy that while China has now landed on Mars, it's only the second nation to successfully land on Mars. Every other Martian image we've had from that surface has been from an American spacecraft.
Okay. So, there's space tourism, of course, which probably lends itself more to the private sector. What about the other aspect of the commercialization of space, and that is mining? Who has the edge there?
Well, nobody's actually mined an asteroid yet. There have been a number of landings. I don't believe the Chinese have done it yet, and they don't seem to be suggesting that they're about to. One of the problems we have with the Chinese, of course, and one of the reasons why cooperating with them is virtually impossible, is because they are the most opaque space power out there. We don't even know the basic budget. We have no idea, really, until the Chinese tell us what their space program, what their space objectives are. So are they going to land on an asteroid and mine it? We don't know. But the U.S. Congress has passed laws that allow American companies to do so, and as important, guarantees property rights. That's an important part of the process. Liability is always one, but ownership and property rights is the other.
Dean, whether it's a national defence, whether it's a digital communications or navigation, there is a lot at stake here in terms of the space race. Who, in your opinion, has got the edge? Can both powers ever work together, or is this all leading to an inevitable clash?
Well, very few things are inevitable, but the scary part here is that we see aspects of very intense competition. Something to think about here, particularly for you folks in Asia, is, of course, the Belt and Road Initiative. As China builds infrastructure, whether it's in Southeast Asia, Central Asia, Africa, South America, it is going to tie that physical infrastructure, pipelines, cell phone networks, etc., to timing signals. Timing signals that will come from the Beidou satellite network. If you think the Chinese will help you off of Beidou because you as a country want to now move to GPS, want to distance yourselves from China, the reality is China doesn't do anything for free and is almost certainly not going to help you with that. So these countries that are allowing China to build their infrastructure may be tying themselves to China at a near genetic level in the sense of their fundamental infrastructure for decades to come, regardless of political choices.
Okay. Always great value talking to you, Dean, and interesting. Thank you for your time this evening. Your side. Dean Cheng there from the Heritage Foundation joining us live. All right, coming up on Squawk this Monday, such